What's up, everybody? Welcome back once again to White Sox Daily. I'm Aaron Feely with some more White Sox news back from the holidays. Hope everyone had a phenomenal holiday season this year. The new year just around the corner, and a new season of White Sox baseball just around the corner here. And already making a bit of splash in the overseas market. That has been a huge story that we've been following to this point. And now there is a bit of traction starting towards them continuing down that path. We kind of talked about the potential of another superstar Japanese player coming in a little bit last week. Now there is a bit of steam for pitcher Tatsuya Imai, a guy that has been linked to the New York Yankees a lot as of recently, a guy whose clock is kind of ticking down here for his signing day. And suddenly, the Chicago White Sox are starting to rise up the odds boards here for the talented pitcher from Japan, a guy who comes in 27 years old, certainly a dude that plays a position that the Chicago White Sox could desperately use right now. They are in need of pitching from various different angles here, starting, rotational, closing, anything they can get. Obviously a really solid starter over in Japan and a guy that the White Sox would love to be able to bring in. Had under a 2 ERA last season, a 1.92 with a 0.892 whip. Pitched 163.2 innings. Has a proven track record of great production over there. Ended up with a 3.15 ERA over his full 8-year career. I mean, a guy that has just been really dominant overseas and who many people project will continue to be a really solid player as he makes his way now over to the United States. And with the Chicago White Sox having just recently hired a head of scouting for Japan this offseason, they've already brought in one major free agent from that territory. Could be an opportunity here to keep that ball rolling and to address a second major position of need here in Chicago as they continue to build upon this young core that they've got and to establish some more momentum heading into the tail end of this rebuild as they start looking to be real contenders moving forward. And as we continue along that trend as to what they might be looking to do here in free agency, perhaps a more familiar face is starting to make the rounds here in Chicago as Yoan Moncada's name has been popping up as far as players that the Chicago White Sox are now showing great interest in, as well as a couple other teams. The Los Angeles Angels expected to make a push to bring him back. The Pittsburgh Pirates are very interested in him to come in and play some third base. And the Toronto Blue Jays also listed alongside the Chicago White Sox as teams that would be really interested in bringing Moncada in for 2025. Obviously, the Chicago White Sox have the longest history with Yoan. Drafting him originally, he was the top-ranked prospect in the White Sox farm system for many years, came up, huge expectations to be a superstar third baseman with Chicago, a switch-hitting third baseman that was supposed to be a phenomenal defensive player that had both power and contact abilities, and he just never panned out to that true superstar level that we were all hoping he was going to be. But obviously now still a solid player, certainly can still rely on him defensively, hoping to continue to get at least serviceable play out of him offensively. He is now 30 years old, was hitting .234 last year with the Angels, just 12 home runs. So a guy that, still continuing to look to get back to the monster 2019 season that he had way back when he was, still kind of more hype than fulfillment for the Chicago White Sox, but maybe, that second opportunity, or at the very least, just a guy that can come in here and give you some versatility in the infield. They're still looking to round out the depth, round out some of those final spots here. You got first base set now with Murakami. You've got Colson Montgomery likely to be sitting over there at shortstop, and then Lenine Sosa, Miguel Vargas, Chase Mydroth, all perfectly acceptable players, but a large platoon to kind of bounce all over the place along that infield between second, third, and then just rotating in at short and first. Yohan Moncada, a guy that can come in and jump right on into that platoon on day one. And another guy at a position of need now starting to pick up some steam with the Chicago White Sox as well. Michael Conforto, a guy that, fulfills that outfield need. That's probably maybe the number one need for Chicago now, apart from the starting pitching, just so that they can get 5 legitimate starters into that rotation. But we're still not totally sure what's happening with right field. Brooks Baldwin could be over there. There's been a lot of steam now picking up that Everson Pereira is going to end up in that right field spot. Nothing really set in stone at this time. And Conforto, obviously a guy now at the tail end of his career, 32 years old, but has been consistent up until last year, had a pretty down year, which could actually make him a more viable option for Chicago. Might be why their name is now connected to him. He could be coming in at a bit of a discount for the Chicago White Sox as a guy you can slip in there in right field and then just hope that he bounces back to the mean. A guy who usually averages about 20 to 25 home runs, a career 245 hitter, coming off a down season last year. The year before, hit 237 and 20 home runs. Pretty much a Michael Conforto season over there. Last season, hit under 200, hit just 12 home runs. Not really a fantastic year for him, but you'd be banking really on sign him for cheap off a down year and hope for that bounce back to where he typically is hitting, and a guy that can play some solid, not spectacular, but solid defense for you. And really just can fill a hole that you've got for a year. Projected right now to make about $6.6 million, certainly an affordable deal for a one-year rental player. A guy that even if he does have a nice bounce back and the White Sox are not contending in the second half of the year, for maybe just a playoff spot, the division, maybe if you're a few games out, you hold on to him, but otherwise, maybe a nice trade piece if he's having a decent season for that second half of the year. Who knows? Just a whole number of options that open up when you sign a guy like that, especially in the position that Chicago is in, so desperately in need of anybody who can just stick out there in right field and get a season out of. So a name to watch out for there in Conforto. And finally, another free agent veteran option for the Chicago White Sox at yet another position that we've been talking about here. Zack Littell fills a starting pitching need. Played for 2 teams last season. He started off in Tampa, ended up in Cincinnati. Had an acceptable, if not particularly crazy, season. 3.81 ERA. Pitched 186 innings. Started the year, he was a 3.58 ERA in Tampa. He's been roughly around there over the last several years, roughly in the mid to high threes for his ERA. Certainly a guy that could come into Chicago and be probably in the upper half of the starting rotation. I mean, probably your number 2, number 3 starter right there. And a guy with veteran leadership. And once again, I know this is where the bar is right now, but he's a warm body that you can be confident will come in. He's like, we need a starting pitcher. Throw him in there. He's going to be a starting pitcher. He'll be 1 every 5 games, and he's not injured all that often. Sure, it works. Fine. Sign him 1-2 years, something like that. Again, if he has a breakout year, he's been fairly consistent the last few years, but let's say he does. Let's say he has a magical run kind of towards the beginning half of this year. Another veteran trade piece for the trade deadline. You can never really have too many of those when you're a team like Chicago that's still in the middle of this rebuild. And, if things swing your way, maybe you do hang on to him and you have a fun run at a potential playoff berth if everything just falls perfectly into place for you in what many people are expecting to be another down year, just looking for improvement, really. Sometimes things just happen. Things just fall your way. In Chicago, we're looking at a couple examples of that. Our football team right now, the Chicago Bears, we were just looking for some improvement under Ben Johnson. Here they are. They've got the division and the playoffs clinched up. A couple of things fell their way. It happens. Who's to say that can't be the White Sox next? And so, yeah, a couple of veteran options out there right now that could potentially help bring that along. How would you guys feel about bringing any of these guys in? Let us know down below in the comments section, and we'll see you again tomorrow.